So, welcome to When Life Gives You Lemons. And this is the series of interviews called The Calling. So, here with me is Samantha. So, Samantha, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm Samantha Potter. I am a life threshold transformational coach, energy healer, and an end of life doula or death doula, as some call it.
That's amazing. Thank you for coming. As you know, we're talking about a call or a calling that we receive from life, the universe, your body, X, Y, Z. So, can you describe the moment when you first had this calling and what was it? Was it a whisper, a breakdown, an event, or something else entirely?
It was all of the above. Uh, well, except for the whisper. There was no whisper. Uh, it was a stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis during the pandemic that had me really looking at, we didn't know how severe it was at first, but in talking to my doctor, it was pretty sure that this was something that was treatable. I wasn't facing a terminal disease, or not immediately terminal, but it was still a big shock. And because of the pandemic, things took so long to get started. There just weren't the medical personnel, getting the appointments, the tests, the everything. So by the time my treatment started, it had advanced to stage 3, which meant that it was in my lymph nodes. Um, so I did all the things. The tumor was so large that I had to do chemotherapy first rather than surgery first. So I pretty much spent an entire year in breast cancer treatment. Um, and during that year, I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to be able to go back to work? I was working as a paralegal in a law firm doing estate planning and probates. So helping people plan for where their things were going to end up after they died, and then after they passed, helping their families, do all the legal work. And during that time, I ran across the profile of a friend of a friend on social media where, excuse me, I
Yeah.
thought I'd put my phone on uh, airplane mode. Anyway, I ran across during my breast cancer treatment, I ran across the profile of a friend who said that identified herself as a death doula. And I went, I've never heard of that.
Mhm,
But I kind of immediately intuited what that was.
mhm.
And so I did some searching and some research, and I ended up enrolling in 3 different end of life doula courses, a couple of which I completed during my breast cancer treatment. Um, and my business was born from there, Rubicon's Edge. Uh, the kind of the saying, crossing the Rubicon means a point of no return. So standing at the edge of the Rubicon River, is kind of the metaphor for my business.
Wow.
So that was the start of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I just asked you, when you started these trainings, what was your intention? Did you want to understand what death meant to you in case you had to face it, or was it that you wanted to help people or support them through a similar path?
So, I didn't have a lot of and I still don't have a lot of fear of death. That's something that, I'm not a reckless person. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I'm not out bungee jumping or, doing motocross on motorcycles or things. But I'm not afraid of death, and I never have been since I was a young child. So my purpose in training as an end of life doula or a death doula was more to use the background I already had. I had worked for 25 years helping people in the legal field plan their death and deal with what happens afterwards, with their families left behind. So I knew all about that. I've been talking to people about death and dying for a quarter of a century. And so the shift into end of life doula work seemed like a natural progression. I did go back to work at the law firm for probably 4 years before I retired. And so my business was part-time at the time. I'm retired now. But it was, I kind of the existential question I was facing when I made that decision was, what purpose does my life have, or has my life had? I mean, I know I raised a family, and my husband and I even raised our granddaughter. I worked and I did good things in my work, but everybody does that, right? And so what meaning and what purpose did my life have? And what can I do with the rest of it? No matter how short or long it might be, to make sure that I lean into that meaning, that purpose. And so helping people come to terms with their life and prepare for their death was kind of, that to me seemed like a calling, a purpose that I could lean into. Not only did I overtrain for the job, but I also had this unique background of knowing the legal, financial, the technical stuff, about how to manage it. And I can't give legal advice to people, but I can interpret the legal language and help them kind of put it all into place. And so, but it wasn't long before my death doula business expanded because people came to me and started asking me, well, I'm not dying, but my first client that was not dying, an elderly woman who was just having a hard time coming to terms with being old. She was still very vital, very, well, she wasn't as active physically as she had used to be, but her mind was still there. But she could feel things slowing down and lack of energy. And so I picked up some coaching cred, became a life coach. And now I can assist people through any kind of life transition, not just that big one at the very end. So that my purpose and my journey continues to grow, but yeah, I am now finding fulfillment in the work that I'm doing, not just for me, but I can see the value that it has for others. So
Yeah, I think that's amazing. What did you have to leave behind to walk this new path? Or was there anything you have to, I don't know. I imagine like having a corporate career and all of a sudden having something else that might be going more into or the spiritual or the coaching. What did you have to leave behind or what beliefs did you have to put aside to become this new you?
Well, I truly did have to leave the corporate career. Um, I had not planned on leaving as soon as I did. It was kind of thrust upon me when the law firm was acquired by a bigger one and they downsized. And so they didn't have room for me. So that was kind of a shock to me, but it was also a blessing. It made me realize that I couldn't put my attention on this new purpose, really. I don't see this as a career. I see this as, kind of, I might have come to it late in life, but this is my work. And I couldn't do my work when I was obligated for, 40 or 50 hours a week to someone else. So that was a bit of a blessing, but also kind of internally, I had to put aside the thought that or the self talk that
Mm-hmm.
I can only do what I do well. Because to own a business, you have to do all the things and you have to learn how to do all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've, kind of hitched myself up and all right, I'm not really good at marketing, but I'm going to follow the steps and I'm going to do it. And I'm finding I'm getting better. Just like everything, you can't be good at something. But what I am good at, you know, I lean into. And the things I need to learn, I reach out for help. And that's the hard part, is not because I'd been doing my corporate work for so long, I was the expert and people were coming to me with questions. And so I had to put aside that feeling of being the one who knew it all and put on my learning uh, hat, I guess.
That's amazing, and I can totally relate to that, having come from a corporate world as well. I fully understand where you're coming from. So, what is one truth you now live by that you wish everyone knew before making a big life transition? Because obviously the calling could be like you're talking about, like how you're supporting people, uh, big events in life that
Mhm.
take us to another change, another lifestyle. What is the one truth, or how do you support people? What do you let them know to support them through these, let's say, life transitions?
So, the one thing that I think would help most people is if they could get kind of in their bones the understanding that, yes, your old life is done and you can't go back to it, whether it was something you chose to leave behind, like you retired, or if it was something that was thrust on you, like my medical diagnosis. You can't go back to not, that ending. And there's a lot of things out there, and it's kind of scary, but you're not tied to any one decision in any one moment. You know, once you make a decision, it's been made, but you can change your mind. You can pivot. You can play with an idea, and just because you don't follow it through all the way, you followed it through enough to know, nope, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. It's like I still love being an end of life doula. It's I feel in some way it's my soul work, but
Mhm.
I can't have more than one or two clients at a time just because I never know when they're going to need me. It's a very time intensive thing. And so I still want to be doing this work. And so I can do this work with people that aren't dying and that don't have like that critical time thing going on. but it required me to make a pivot and say, okay, I don't have to give that up, but I can add. But some people, you may have to give that up to make a choice. Uh,
Yeah.
so you make a decision with the information you've got, but that doesn't take away your decision-making capability in the future.
Yes.
Um, I saw a graphic once that showed, I wish I had it. It's not, I can't describe it, so we'll just pretend like I never said that. but
It's okay. It's
but
okay.
yeah, it's like every path you follow, you've already let other paths fall behind you. You just don't notice it because you're so focused on where you're going. So I would say keep your vision open, that inside vision. Approach life with curiosity and possibility, even the icky stuff. What if there's something on the other side of this for me if I just get through this? And just lean in to the curiosity and
Mm.
play with the possibilities.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So what happened with your health then?
So I did the full treatment.
Mhm.
I did chemotherapy for 5 months, and then I had to heal from that. And then I did my surgery, and I opted for a double mastectomy. Um, and then on the right side, they took out all my lymph nodes. So that one was
Mhm.
radical. And then I had to heal from that. And then I did the radiation therapy.
Mhm.
Um, and then the healing journey from that. So that took up pretty much a full year, you
Mhm.
know. So it kept me occupied during COVID, I guess, it would be the bright side.
Mhm.
Um, and then there was a lot of healing, went back to work, started my business, started working with clients, but on a kind of side gig level.
Mhm.
Lots of trainings and lots of stuff. So, and then after about a year and a half, I had my reconstruction.
Mhm.
Some really big complications from that. I ended up with 3 surgeries in 3 months, but I did heal up after that. Uh,
Mhm.
so, now I will live with cancer for the rest of my life. I still have to go back and see my oncologist. I still have to have blood tests done regularly to make sure it's not coming back. But, the hope is that something else will get me a long way down the line before the cancer comes back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. And probably with all the training you have, both in energy work and coaching with the conscious and unconscious mind, you will be
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to to make things better for yourself. Because I do believe that all our conditions come from, our thoughts or emotions and or things that we have accepted for true. And I'm sure.
Yeah. I could not see that while I was in it, but I can certainly see that now.
Yeah.
That, you know, this cancer was not just some rogue cells going wild. It was a wake-up call.
Yes.
It really was. And in some ways a real blessing because had this not happened, I wouldn't have reevaluated my life. I wouldn't have made that pivot. And I wouldn't
Mhm.
be leaning into what can I do next? How can I help people kind of get through these kinds of events like I did, but with somebody? I mean, I did have support. I had
Mhm.
friends and I had family, and people took care of me,
Mhm.
but they hadn't been in my position,
Mhm.
right? They didn't understand how my whole life turned upside down.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that is something I can bring to the table for my clients is, and that's not the only big life transition I've gone through. I was
Yeah.
widowed at age 34, I served in the military and then had to come back to civilian life. You know, it doesn't sound like something very big, but it's a huge shift in
Yeah.
how you live your life. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be, I got a horrible diagnosis or I got fired or I got, you know, I lost a loved one. It can be something you plan for. You can be, you can get a promotion at work. You've done such good work, we're promoting you, and we've got an opening in our other division across the country. So now not only are you living in a place where you know you don't have a social support, you're finding your way in a new job you've never done before. So you've got imposter syndrome and isolation and how do I make friends as an adult? And it doesn't matter whether you're 25 or 55. Making friends as an adult is hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what would be kind of if we were talking about the top big emotions your clients have when they're dealing with these life transitions or these life callings, what would they be?
Um, a lot of, surprisingly, uh, a lot of grief for the old life, even if it's a change that they sought, a lot of frustration because they're no longer, they no longer feel like they know what they're doing, that what the results are going to be of their actions because all the circumstances have changed. A lot of fear and excitement and it's all the emotions. I mean, and they're all at the same time. You know, even my clients who are dying,
Mhm.
the one thing that they want most is to live fully until they die. They don't want to be shelved and just
Mhm.
put away until they finally take their last breath. They don't want to just be taken care of physically. They want to participate in life. And yes, as as people get closer to death, whether it's old age or a terminal diagnosis, now we're not talking about you get hit by a truck, right?
Yeah, 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 to do that.
But these
Yes.
long deaths that
Mm.
they need to be engaged however they can. So sometimes that engagement might be, if they've got the energy, telling stories,
Mhm.
planning what they want to leave behind for their family, whether it's letters or a project, put together recipes for a cookbook or plan, if you're an artist, maybe you want to plan one final big art installation that'll be opened at your memorial or something. But to be active and engaged in life, you don't have to be physically
Mhm.
doing. Some want to be. So if there are things that you can handle energetically, let them do it. Don't argue with people who know they're going to die because they want a shot of whiskey at night or a
Mhm.
cigar. Let them enjoy their life however they can, because a lot of the ways that they could enjoy it have already been stripped away. So they want to live fully until they die. And why don't we all do that? Why don't we all make that choice to, given the circumstances we're provided with, there are a lot of constraints on what we can and can't do in any one day. It's really
Mhm.
no different than someone who was dying. It's just your options are, a, yeah, they're a little bigger now. But most people don't look at it like that. So, yeah, all right. So the house burned down. That's horrible. It is horrible. And I wouldn't diminish that at all.
Mhm.
But let's take some joy in planning the rebuild. We had insurance, what little upgrades can we do? Just would have been too much bother. Or we'll take the insurance money and buy a new place, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
lean into the joy, lean into the curiosity, and your life will be infinitely better, even if it's not a huge transition.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful message. I'm going to ask you this question. If your journey had a title, like a book or film, what would be called and why?
I think I would call it energy doula,
Hmm.
um, because my work, both with my end of life clients and with my coaching clients who find themselves in big life transitions, is so incredibly informed by energy work and energy healing. There's there's something about adding in that extra layer. So it's like you mentioned before. I use um, coaching both with the conscious and the unconscious, and we blend it together through a quantum release, doing root cause coaching or quantum release coaching to find kind of the core of what some of the sticking points are. But when you take energy work and add that to the mix, it's not just conscious and unconscious. You've got the access to source kind of filling you up and leading you and helping along the way. And so it's a pretty powerful blend.
Beautiful, beautiful. I agree that working with the energy of the divine, whatever we want to call it, makes the whole difference. That gives
Yeah,
another depth to whatever we are doing.
yeah.
So if people wanted to work with you, Samantha, how can they find you?
So they can find me online at rubiconsedge.com. So you see my little logo behind me. Just take out the apostrophe and smush Rubicon's Edge together, rubiconsedge.com. And they can schedule just a connect with Samantha or a discovery call if they're interested in energy work, um, coaching. My doula business is limited to local, so but I'll work with anybody else anywhere in the world.
Amazing. Do you teach any classes? Do you have any groups or
Yeah.
anything else that people
Mhm.
would like to, work with you?
So I do have um, I have a free offering right now that is rubiconsedge.com/reclaim. And that leads you into it's not 7 days because it happens every other day, but a seven email series about, okay, you're going through a big life change. What are some steps that can guide you along the way? And that comes with a workbook. And if you're more interested in exploring energy work, um, same, it's Rubicon's Edge dot slash one moment. Let me look it up. Energy, I believe.
We can share the links as well if
Yeah,
you
yeah. I
want.
will give you the links to put in the show notes because, yeah. But that one is a 5 email series uh, in working with balancing your energy, charging it, and there's